We have two scripture readings this morning. One from the Hebrew Scriptures and one from the New Testament. But both of them focusing on the theme of God's destruction of death. We read these beautiful words from the prophet Isaiah about that mountain on which God will swallow up death forever. That place where God will unite all of God's people in a feast of rich food filled with merit and well-aged wine, strained clear. For as long as humanity has had consciousness enough to understand that we are all mortal, that we all one day will face our own death, we've asked those questions about what happens, what's next. We have grieved those who have died, and we have sought comfort. And Isaiah offers that comfort to the Hebrew people as he speaks a word of wholeness on the other side of death, in a place where all of God's people gather. In John's Gospel, we find that same thing echoing again. When Jesus, who has heard of his friend Lazarus' illness, yet has taken his time to get back to Bethany to respond with healing, arrives and finds that his friend has already been dead for 4 days. It's a story of transformation, of resurrection, where Jesus goes to that tomb and commands, "Lazarus, come out." And we find the dead man walking forth, no longer dead, but filled once more with the holy gift of life. But there's a piece of the story that we move past very quickly. Somewhere between Jesus finding out that his friend has died and him calling him forth from the tomb, there's one verse, the shortest verse in all of Scripture, that in Greek is only 2 words, that our translation today is rendered as 4 because, well, you know, sometimes you got to be wordy. In the King James, it simply is, Jesus wept. And I think for us that's important, because it's easy for us to gloss over death, to say, oh, death is nothing at all, it doesn't matter, because we're all going to be together again. But there's a reality about death that strikes us hard when we lose someone that we care for. And we find in this one little verse, the shortest verse in all of Scripture, connection with Christ himself. We weep. Jesus wept too. Jesus certainly weeps today. When he looks at our nation and sees what we have become. A nation where in just the last week we have seen 11 worshipers gunned down in their synagogue. Where we have seen 2 African Americans shot down in a Kroger. Where we have seen bombs mailed to political opponents. Where we have seen 2 killed and 4 wounded in a yoga studio in Florida. Violence, death, hatred are all around us. And Jesus weeps. But in that weeping, in that sorrow, there's hope. Because we find ourselves not only comforted by the fact that Jesus shares our emotion, but comforted by the hope that Jesus brought to Lazarus on that day. Those 11 shot down in the synagogue will not rise again physically on this earth. But out of their death comes resurrection. As we see a community gathering, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, secular, standing together and decrying acts of violence and hatred. I don't know if you saw the photo that made it to my news feed this week of an African American man standing on the front steps of a church holding a sign that said, "Jewish lives matter." That's important. Jewish lives matter. Black lives matter. Hispanic lives matter. Arab lives matter. Because life, everyone's life, is a gift from God. And so we stand up and we too are counted as we say, Jewish lives matter. As we stand with those gunned down in the Kroger and say black lives matter. That shooter had attempted to get into an African American church before he turned to the Kroger. And on his way out, he was confronted by an armed white man. And he said to that white man, "Don't shoot me, I won't shoot you. Whites don't shoot whites." I don't even know what to say. We find those gunned down in Tallahassee by a man who was angry at women. I don't know what to say. We see vandalism at a synagogue in Brooklyn. "All Jews must die," scribbled on the walls of the synagogue. We have found that we live in a nation filled with hate. We stand up. We speak up. And on Tuesday, we vote. That's our call as Christians in this country. To vote. To do our part. To support our nation. To build a better future. Now, I am sure that folks in this congregation, when we go out, we will vote differently. We have Democrats, we have Republicans, we have people who are just going a pox on both your houses. But when you vote, no matter what your leanings are, let me offer you a challenge. When you pick up that marker, when you look at your ballot, ask yourself some questions. Who can I vote for that will help decrease hate in our nation? Who can I vote for that will bring people together? Who can I vote for that represents my Christian faith? A faith that calls us to love our neighbors, to pray for our enemies, to bless those who persecute us. When you reflect on that question, your answer may be different from mine. And that's okay. But let your faith guide your voting. Let who you are at core as a Christian inform who you are as a citizen. It's the best way that we can honor the lives of those who have been lost in this last week. And it's the best way we can honor the lives of those that we celebrate today, those saints who have guided us to this point. Open your hearts, your minds, your lives to the love of God that calls us to reach out to our neighbors in love. And then, for the love of God, vote. God bless. May that blessing carry us through as one nation. Amen.
Amen.